Welcome to the Vin Armani Show. We are streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Vin Armani. Also on Twitter and Periscope at Vin Armani is my handle there. And of course, we are streaming live on Facebook on the Facebook page of our content partner, Activist Post. That's facebook.com/Activist Post. We've got a great show for you today. Our guest today, fresh off tour with his band BackWordz, we have Eric July. I've been really wanting to have him on for quite a while, but I wanted to schedule it for right this week because they are debuting a new album that is awesome. So for all the anarcho-capitalists out there, most of you are already familiar with his work. For those of you who are not, this dude is incredibly intelligent, incredibly insightful, and a very, very talented musician. So I'm excited to have him on the show. The news this week that we've got is a lot of Trump stuff, but in particular, it's looking at sort of the new, as we've now settled in, it's looking at the new normal, the new status quo. Where are the sides in the political debate? And there's some interesting new opponents and some new faces that have popped onto the political scene. We're going to talk about that. Also, a story about Elon Musk. You know, we love to do Elon Musk stories and artificial intelligence. So that's our technology story for today. To help me cover all of this, as always, my good friend, co-host, and producer, Mr. Christian Reyes. Christian.
Thank you, Vin.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm good. Great show today.
Yeah.
I mean, you know I'm a music head.
Yeah.
So anytime I get a chance to play music on the show, I am stoked about it. And Eric is a lot of fun. It's actually, you know, one of the things that I'm excited to speak with him about, because it's something that as minorities ourselves, you know, especially in the liberty debate, race is, and well, in America, race is a difficult topic, right? It's always a flashpoint,
yeah,
and it's been a flashpoint as of late. It's hard to have a rational and unemotional debate about the nature of race and how race, particularly in the United States, has affected like the politics of liberty.
Yep.
But they're tied so tightly into each other. Human rights, civil rights, liberty, and race in this country, you can't pull them apart. And Eric July represents really, I think, a great spokesman for the rational side of liberty and has some ideals that make a lot of sense when it comes to race. So that's actually a discussion that as of yet, I think we're on about 24 shows now.
Yep.
Basically about 6 months of the show, which congratulations, dude.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Good. That's a discussion that we actually haven't had yet. So among other things, and of course, getting people familiar with this album, I'm excited to have that discussion, but we'll see where the conversation goes because it's always interesting with him.
Yeah, he's a great musician too. I just realized that today as we were going through his stuff. I'm like, wow.
Dude. Really good.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been a hip hop head pretty much my entire life, as I know you have as well, and B-boy. And, you know, so we've been around great musicians. We've been around great artists. It's one thing to have somebody who's a great lyricist, right? It's another thing to have somebody whose delivery is nasty and who can flip up styles, right? So he's a vocalist in a metal band. BackWordz is a metal band. But as a rapper, like as a hip hop rapper, he's sick. He's sick at both. And then lyrically, the lyrical content, like the political content, there's very few individuals who have been able to capture all of that.
Right. Well, it's a whole nother level when your lyrics actually stand for something. You know, when the principles and you know the level of thought that is involved with doing something like that is crazy.
Yeah, it's so and he's a very young guy. I hadn't realized until I actually started researching for this interview just how young he is. I mean, I guess we'll talk with him about that, but he's got a long time in the scene. So he's one of the few really coherent libertarian voices, I think, right now that is, I mean, I guess he's a millennial.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's not even our generation. So, yeah, great. I'm very, very, very excited about this interview. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So, you know, this week, I had said I was going to stay away from Trump stuff, right? Yeah. And honestly, I do kind of feel like I am staying away from what the media is typically doing, which is anything that Trump does, it's like they just want to destroy him. And we're not going to do this whole Russia thing. Like, if people want, they can go back. We covered what bullshit this is back during the elections. You can go back through the archives. We've disproved every single thing that's still being brought up about the whole Russian connection and everything. We've disproved it all, so we're not going to cover that. What I do find interesting, though, is the new battle lines that have been drawn in Congress. The past couple weeks, we've covered Rand Paul speaking out. So that's from the Senate. Now we have some new opponents to Trump coming from the right. I'm over the left. You know what I mean? Like, they're useless because their arguments, their arguments is all based on feels, right? There's no rationality there, and I'm a rational, logical person, so I can't do that. So, political arguments against sort of creeping. Yeah, Trump has done some things to eliminate regulations and whatnot. He's done some other things, like with Ryan Care, where it's like really not eliminating things and making things worse. Here comes the new opposition, and that's our first news story about the Freedom Caucus. So, Freedom Caucus, we've heard this phrase come up. We heard it come up in this repeal and replace Obamacare debacle that we covered last week with the Paul Ryan bill being basically not even voted on, and also not eliminating the individual mandate. These were the guys who voted against this thing, who basically made sure that it did not have, they didn't even get a chance to vote, but just made sure that it didn't even get brought to the floor for a vote. And the main reason was the individual mandate. So there's this libertarian wing, it looks like, of the Republican Party. So I just wanted to, there were some shots fired, this week. Clearly, these guys are not getting in line with some of the things that Donald Trump wants to do. And we're going to see where that goes. But let's look at how this conflict started shaping up. Because interestingly, and this is new, this is something that's new for the Trump administration. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. Trump has been living by Twitter. We'll see. Is he going to get stabbed and impaled by Twitter as well? So shots fired this week. Trump started it out with the Freedom Caucus. We got this Trump tweet. We'll go through what these exchanges look like. So, first tweet from Donald Trump was, "The Freedom Caucus will hurt the entire Republican agenda if they don't get on the team and fast. We must fight them and Dems in 2018." So, Donald Trump ready to wage war against members of his own party that he does not feel are stepping in line with what he wants to do. But you're not just going to, and it's, Twitter is for everybody. So you're not just going to get away with that and then not have a response. So two congressmen in particular, Congressman Amash, who's from the 3rd District in Michigan, and Congressman Massey, who's from the 4th District in Kentucky. Now remember, Rand Paul is also from Kentucky. So the Kentucky delegation, congressional delegation, may end up being an interesting delegation. That's obviously a red state, like a big-time red state. But you've got Appalachia running through there, so you do have this sort of libertarian freedom streak. So this is probably playing very well to their constituency. Let's take a look at what Amash said to Donald Trump's shot over the bow here. You've got Justin Amash saying, "It didn't take long for the swamp to drain real Donald Trump. No shame, Mr. President. Almost everyone succumbs to the DC establishment." So Justin Amash taking it to Trump, basically saying all of that was rhetoric and that now Trump is falling into the establishment. Let's see what Massey said on the same note about draining of the swamp. They're getting so let's see this Massey swamp tweet. So at Donald Trump, it's a swamp, not a hot tub. We both came here to drain it. Hashtag swamp care polls 17%. Sad. See, I mean, he's using that whole sad thing. I mean, obviously that's what Donald Trump uses himself. So I've always said that if you're going to fight Donald Trump, that the way to fight him is you can't fight him in a serious way. That you have to turn the times when he's over the top, you sort of have to turn his buffoonery against him. This is where the left has really lost. The left has lost because they've taken him seriously at times when he's using hyperbole and exaggeration, which he's written about so many times that this is a tactic that he uses. But they get up in arms, like they're triggered, and we've covered that triggering quite a bit on the show. So then we have Trump's social media director. So Trump's got a social media director, Dan Scavino. And not only is he the social media director, but now he's acting as a Trump surrogate on Twitter. So Scavino goes in now, and he's going to fire the next shot back at the Freedom Caucus. We got this. At Real Donald Trump is bringing auto plants and jobs back to Michigan. At Justin Amash is a big liability. Hashtag Trump train, defeat him in the primary. So Twitter battles. We're having this is historic. Twitter battles between a congressman and the president of the United States. Trump cannot fall into this. The only thing he's doing, I had no idea. Justin Amash's name was not on my lips before this started. And it's very much the enemy of my enemy is my friend. As we're seeing, young people are moving away from left and right and are very much moving toward the libertarian side. We're going to talk with Eric July about that. It's probably not a good idea to inform them of who they should be paying attention to. To give you an example, with Amash, let's take a look at just the background of his Twitter. I found this very interesting about who is this Justin Amash guy. Do you have the Amash background? There we go. So look at this. This is the background of his Twitter. Two monkeys. Clearly, it's supposed to be the Republicans and Democrats just screeching at each other. The dude's at 115,000 followers. That's a lot for a congressman. That's a lot. So people are paying attention, and he's becoming a spokesman. So Scavino goes in, shots are fired. Massey comes back with this response. We got the second Massey response. He's burning political capital with every tweet. The Washington Times, this is a quote of Massey. He's burning political capital with every tweet that attacks guys who came to Washington, D.C. to drain the swamp. Then do we have Amash also commenting? This, I think, is going to be the new rallying cry for these young congressmen, and with Rand Paul, I think, in the Senate as their sort of their champion in the Senate. Justin Amash says, Trump administration and establishment have merged into hashtag Trumpstablishment. Same old agenda. Attack conservatives, libertarians, and independent thinkers. I think after this election, this was something that I said, that this election, I even have a rant. You could go check this out. I probably put it out about maybe August, maybe September. And I said that this election is absolutely historic and super important, the Clinton-Trump election. You know, going back to Barack Obama, I said that one of the best thing about Barack Obama is that he is going to breed political skepticism. Myself as an anarchist, I said Barack Obama's great because he's going to breed skepticism and cynicism, which sure enough he did. A lot of people got turned off. You know, we're going to speak with Eric July. He's in the same boat that I am. The last time I voted was the first election of Barack Obama. And that was, I believe, Eric July's first vote as well. Now, neither one of us vote. So if you're looking at anarcho-capitalism, libertarianism, agorism, if you're looking at all of these ideas becoming popular, you really can thank Barack Obama. And if you're looking for why they're getting solidified and why they're not going away, you can thank both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. You can thank the Republicans and Democrats for putting up two terrible choices. I mean, look, we had during the election, they were doing these polls of like, do you want Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, or a giant meteor slamming into the earth and killing everybody that lives on the earth? Which would you prefer? And the meteor won. The meteor won in the polls. So you're pushing people toward libertarianism, toward being independents. Yeah, you have the outliers on the left, and they're going straight towards socialism because it's cynicism. But it's looking like you've got these two sort of hard right, and I'm not even sure that we can really call it right. Like, I think the conservatism that we're seeing rise is really what you would call classic liberalism. The idea of life, liberty, and property. The idea of private property rights and a private property order. The idea that government should be as small as possible to non-existent. The government does not have a right to do things like tax and to regulate business, et cetera, et cetera. The way that the founders used the word liberal, meaning free. Liberal coming from liberty. That's really what you're seeing. You're seeing right liberals, classical liberals of the style of Ron Paul. So you could say the Ron Paul wing of the Republican Party, which to me is the good wing of the Republican Party. I think that's where young people will go towards. And clearly, youth, Ron Paul and his message and youth, it really resonates with young people. And so here you have these young congressmen who are going down that same route. Donald Trump had better be very careful about alienating them, because he's going to alienate people like our guest today. He's going to alienate the young people that he needs. I mean, there are certain young people who are very, very into the idea of Donald Trump. Is he becoming just the same as the establishment? Is the Trump establishment, is that really happening? Is Justin Amash on point? Well, that's our second news story. This is the Trump establishment. What is the Trump establishment? We've gone in long enough that we're going to take a look at what I believe is Trump's new normal. What the basic trajectory is that we can expect for the next 4 years. Again, I'm apolitical. I don't vote. But these things affect business. These things affect trade. They certainly affect the growing industries that I care about, like cryptocurrency. War affects everyone. As an entrepreneur, you need to be aware of when war is happening, but we also need to see it out far enough ahead so that we don't make the same mistakes that we made, for instance, during the Bush administration, when people thought that protesting was actually going to help. It didn't. Let's not make those same mistakes. The left is making those mistakes for sure. But if we are going to be more libertarian minded, and certainly for the anarchists out there, we don't want to make those same mistakes. So let's take a look at Trump's new normal. This week, the story that really stood out to me, it's something that we need to pay attention to, because whenever you give the government power, no matter what you think you are empowering them for, right? So Trump, build the wall. We're going to deport illegals. And a lot of people on the right, a lot of people who are, for instance, also for Second Amendment rights. And they are for those Second Amendment rights because they want to be able to use guns to defend their private property from intruders. We're all for that. But the biggest intruder, historically, has been the state. That's why we have a Fourth Amendment. Even in the time of the founders, they knew this. And it's actually the Fourth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment. The founders of this country knew that. So let's look at what happened this week. You empower Immigration and Customs Enforcement. You empower them more. The president decides that he's going to push forward with a new agenda. You support it. And we get this ICE raid story. This is from the Free Thought Project. Headline, it begins, ICE raids innocent legal family and shoots their dad. Answers must be demanded over the inexplicable shooting of a wholly innocent man in the Chicago area home he's owned for decades, as ICE agents, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ostensibly searching for the man's adult son, opened fire on the homeowner despite children just months old sleeping nearby. And no one knows why U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement raided the house in the first place. They're citizens. ICE claims the family man had a gun. His daughter begs to differ. Quote, it's a lie when they say he was holding a gun. He doesn't even own a gun, railed Carmen Torres, who was asleep in the basement with her 1-year-old daughter and husband when the immigration police blasted through the door. They shot my dad. They shot him. And I don't know why. So, Christian, this is what we warn about. That you give the state power. But once the state has that power, you cannot prevent that power from being used against you. So it's citizens demanding that ICE has, people were cheering. Yeah, let's have a deportation force that blows in doors and deports illegal immigrants. Now, regardless of whether or not you, where your feelings are on illegal immigration, I don't think any of those people are for citizens having their doors knocked down and being shot. But that's going to happen. Once you give the state power, it's out of your hands. Once you let it go out of your hands, once you give up freedom, it is gone. It is no longer in your power to control what they do. So when you empower an agency to go blowing down the doors of one group, you empower that agency to blow down your door. Violent coercion, you can't sow violent coercion and reap liberty. That's right. The most important thing, and it's the reason why the left-right paradigm, I'm not in the left or right paradigm. Because that is using the government to force other people to do the things that I want done. No. I can do the things that I want done on my private property. And the only things that I can do are those things which don't hurt other people. It's very, very simple.
Yep.
But when you give that up, when you give up freedom for security, when you allow the state to quote unquote do your dirty work, to enforce your aesthetic preference, right? Because you don't like these particular people. You don't like the fact that you don't understand the language that they're speaking. You don't like the fact that you don't like the way their food smells, or that, your neighborhood has changed, or whatever.
Yeah.
Some aesthetic preference. They're not hurting you, but it's just not your aesthetic preference. You don't like the clothes they wear. You don't like the music that they listen to. You don't like, I don't like the way they look. I don't want them in my neighborhood. Okay, that's fine. Move.
Yep.
Or buy their houses. Buy their houses from them. Or encourage people, go out and start encouraging people that you like to buy those houses and live in them. You don't get to use a gun. If you don't get to use a gun to go chase them out of their house, you don't get to empower someone else or pay somebody else to use a gun to kick them out of their house.
First thing that comes to mind too is like the vampire. The only way the vampire can get in and take advantage is if you invite them in. And I've seen a thing recently with social media is like, government, and they're asking this question, how do we get people to give us their information and to tell us their life? Well, you just invite them to do it. That's
it, man. And I mean, so much of our people are so worried about privacy, but it's like the same people that I see worried about privacy are the same people who are like posting pictures on Instagram tagged with the location that they're at, like, I'm out with my girls, blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, oh my God, I wish people would just leave me alone. Like, I've got a stalker. Yo.
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways. And this is the prime example of that it's like, when you're standing there and you're like, you can't come in my house, boom, you get shot. Oh my God, I got shot. It's horrible. But this is the same person who's like, well, we need to have them to keep us safe.
And if you look at voting too, it's that same thing. You are handing over your rights, your freedoms. You're saying, go ahead and just take it. But it's my right to vote,
Right. Well, look, you can, and this is the thing, you can delegate the rights that you have to another person. So for instance, you have a right to self-defense. You can pay private security to protect you and your family. Of course you can. That's your right. You can delegate that right. You can delegate the right of, let's say you've got some property, you've got armed security, somebody's trespassing, they've got a gun, they're trying to steal your property, and the security that you paid for shoots that person or detains that person or whatever to protect your property. You can delegate the rights that you have. But you cannot delegate rights that you don't have. So in other words, I don't have the right to go kicking down somebody's door because I don't want them in my neighborhood. Since I don't have that right, I can't delegate that right to someone else.
Right.
So these rights that government is taking on itself are not rights that belong to any individual citizen. So therefore, they cannot be delegated. That's what makes it immoral. It's an important part for people to understand.
Very interesting.
So on that note, not just people that you don't want in the neighborhood, but in the international neighborhood, we also have, it looks like, shaping up because every president has to have his war. And Donald Trump has a giant ego. And so, he wants to be a war president too. And it looks like he's picked out his starting point. James Corbett was on the show a couple months ago and was talking about that he's going to make a pivot to China, as it were, and he's going to go in on China and try to challenge China. And it looks like we talked about my predictions on North Korea. It looks like that is still ramping up. We have this North Korea story. This is from the Washington Post. First off, this story is about Defense Secretary James Mattis. If you wanted to know the Washington Post politics, look at the picture of Mattis that they picked here. I mean, Jesus, like a movie villain. Like the absolute worst picture of this man that they possibly could have picked. So I guess we know where the Washington Post is. So this is from the Washington Post headline. U.S. Defense Chief says North Korea, quote, has got to be stopped. North Korea must be stopped on its path toward being able to threaten the United States with nuclear attack, U.S. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis said Friday, in a stark expression of America's top national security concern at the moment. He emphasized diplomatic means of changing Pyongyang's, quote, reckless agenda. On his first visit to Britain as Pentagon chief, Mattis also took rhetorical jabs at Russia and said America's priority in Syria is defeating the Islamic State group rather than bringing down President Bashar Assad. At a joint news conference with his British counterpart, Michael Fallon, Mattis was reminded by a reporter that as commander of U.S. forces in the Middle East several years ago, he considered Iran to be the biggest threat to U.S. interests. Asked how he would deal with Iran as Secretary of State, Mattis called Tehran a problem, but quickly pivoted to condemning North Korea and describing the isolated communist country as the more immediate threat. So, we remember the axis of evil. The axis of evil was George Bush's axis of evil. Iraq, Iran, North Korea. People have been quiet about North Korea.
Yeah.
North Korea has been, under Barack Obama, you didn't really hear, for 8 years, you didn't hear really anything. I mean, they tested nuclear weapons. Iran has not tested a nuclear weapon. As far as we know, Iran does not have a nuclear weapon. Israel, doesn't like them having nuclear energy because you go from nuclear energy to a nuclear weapon very quickly. But I think pretty much everybody agrees that North Korea has the capability to make nuclear weapons, and now they're trying to have the capability to have missiles that can actually deliver those things. But I don't think that the real target in this case is North Korea. I think that the reason why we're hearing about North Korea is that the target is China. And there's a ring around China right now. You've got South Korea, which is basically just a puppet state of the United States. You've got Japan, which, as we covered a couple weeks ago, is reconstituting their military. And then you've got the Philippines, which has their president Duterte, who's an absolute nut job, just an absolute psychopath, and who called Barack Obama a son of a bitch, who's now willing to, that's crazy. You know what I mean? Who's now willing to deal with Donald Trump, and who I think would be happy to have the Trump administration funneling money to his military, which is also his police force on the street. He was sending death squads around to kill drug dealers. So this dude's, he's crazy. Yeah. And so that's the crescent. And you have the battle for the South China Sea. It's a multipolar world. We're basically sitting in 1984. That's what's so weird about this situation. Is, in 1984, there are three major powers. You have Oceania, which is basically like the Americas and Europe. Well, the Americas and Britain in that case. You have Eurasia, which is basically like Russia. In 1984, it's Russia and Europe. But now it's like, so you've got Russia and then East Asia being China and Asia in 1984. And we really have that now. It's like Russia, China, United States. Each one kind of has their own little thing going. Each one, none of them can defeat the other. All of them sort of having their proxy battles play out exactly in the exact area of the world that is described that George Orwell describes in 1984.
It's crazy.
All of them trying to heavily control their own citizens. Very, very concerned with heavily controlling their own citizens. This crazy story came out yesterday about in Russia, in Chechnya, actually, that gay men are being kidnapped and killed by the government.
Whoa.
That they're doing that they're trapping them by posing, like government agents are basically like posing as other gay men on websites, and it's a mainly Muslim area. And then when these guys go to meet them, they just kidnap them and kill them.
That's crazy.
Weird shit happening.
Yeah.
And Kadyrov, who's the head of Chechnya, who was put there by Putin, said, well, how could you kill people that don't even exist in this country? Like, we don't have gay people in this country, so how could we be kidnapping and killing them? And the president of Iran has said kind of similar things. Putin said, so it's like all three of those countries tamping down on liberty.
Yeah.
We have a chance in this country. But it's so frog in a pot. And it's on these things that people kind of agree with, right? It's about creating the second-class citizen. It's about creating the person who doesn't matter. Like, this is what was done for so long with Black Americans in this country. It's like you create a second-class citizen, all the way back to the Constitution having the Three-Fifths Compromise, where for purposes of the census in the South, Black slaves were counted as only 3/5 of a person. Like, that's in the Constitution. Dehumanizing. And it's also part of collectivism. Is this idea that, like, well, it's just like George Orwell in Animal Farm, like, we're all equal, but some are more equal than others, right? And those are the people who get to say where the agenda is going to go. So, on the collectivism note, we also have a new normal in that department. And This is going to be the ongoing fight between Donald Trump and the EPA. So we got this EPA climate change. Yes, thank you. This is from Mashable. EPA chief calls historic climate treaty a bad deal. Scott Pruitt, head of the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, railed against the Paris Climate Agreement in an interview with ABC News on Sunday. He called the landmark climate change accord a, quote, bad deal that unfairly penalizes the United States while giving a free pass to other major polluting countries. As the EPA chief sees it, the U.S. is being forced to go on a carbon diet while China and India get to gobble all the coal, oil, and natural gas they could ever want. In response, the EPA, now you have to remember that the EPA is an agency that ostensibly Donald Trump is the head of. He's in charge of the EPA. It's under the executive branch. Well, they sent out a press release highlighting the reaction to Trump's recent executive order. Do we have that? It was very interesting what they led with. So, for immediate release from the EPA, this is March 30th. This is what they lead with is, what is Congress saying about President Trump's executive order on energy independence? This is Senator Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia. This is what she said, and this is from the EPA's press release. With this executive order, President Trump has chosen to recklessly bury his head in the sand, walking away from the Clean Power Plan and other climate initiatives, including critical resiliency projects, is just not irresponsible, it's irrational. Today's executive order calls into question America's credibility and our commitment to tackling the greatest environmental challenge of our lifetime. With the world watching, President Trump and Administrator Pruitt have chosen to shirk our responsibility, disregard clear science, and undo the significant progress our country has made to ensure we leave a better, more sustainable planet for generations to come. So I think, Christian, that this is a prime example of when we talk about how the deep state is the state. The deep state is the state. Trump is not running the government. The government is run by the bureaucracy. Congress doesn't run the government. No government, from local to state to federal, you're elected, you really think that your mayor or your city council person knows the bullshit that the individual bureaucracy is doing? Like, do you think that the mayor of a city really knows who the bad cops are?
Yeah, exactly.
Or which code enforcers are shaking people down, or who's rude in the business licensing department, or, the fire department, or whatever. They don't know. They don't know. They're the last to know. They're the scapegoats. They're always the ones who have to fix it, but they don't run the show. And this clearly proves it. That when could you imagine putting out a press release that was critical of your boss? Like a company putting out a press release critical of the CEO of the company. Like, how long do the people in that PR department, how long do they last? Like 5 minutes? Heads are rolling. And it's not even that. It's like you wouldn't even imagine it. So that's to say, Trump is not the boss of the EPA. And for me, climate change is one of those that I have I have a difficult time with it. It's the worst. For me, it's the worst of collectivism. It's the worst. And it's the biggest scam. It's one of the biggest scams that's been going on for the longest time. And the reason why I will say this, not necessarily climate change, but, and I've said this before, the role of the priest class and how they have always, through history, how they have risen to power is convincing either the public or dumb rulers, but mainly the public, that they speak for God. And the way that they do that is by convincing them that God has spoken to them and told them that something is about to happen when they know what's about to happen because it's natural.
The eclipse story.
There's the eclipse. But look, you've got all of these prophets predicting like plagues in the Bible, and then the plagues happen, and then the rulers and the people are like, oh my God, it's their God doing this. But you got to think like, okay, let's say that that's a historical story. Like, it certainly is based on something. Like, the story stuck around, the writer wrote it, it wasn't so fantastical. Like, it had to have happened.
Right.
And the reason why you think it had to have happened is because, like the eclipse story, right? And like climate change, it's something that still occurs. It's a pattern and an archetype that still occurs. And so you're like, wow, they were doing this pattern all the way back then. All the way back. And it's like, if people are causing this is so simple. This is so simple. So we'll do two things, right? The first one is very, very simple and self-evident, and the next one is like kitchen science on climate change. Now, this is with you can have everything that's out there with climate change, right? And you've got Al Gore, he's got his new movie that's coming up, an inconvenient sequel. So, climate change. This is, whether it's science, this is scientific method, but it's also just, it could be anything. It could be you're hearing a weird noise in your house, or your car is doing something weird, or your computer's doing something weird, right? Or your body's doing something weird.
Yeah.
Okay? Like you're not sleeping all of a sudden, or your stomach is really hurting. And you're trying to figure out like, what's going on? What's going on? So you take climate change. Now, the temperature, back in the day, they were like, oh, the temperature's going down, it's global cooling, like in the 70s. Then it was global warming. Now they stopped calling it global warming or global cooling, they called it climate change because it's like, well, we can't, if it stops warming. So it's like, okay, what you got to say is, it's just like if your stomach was hurting. You're like, have I felt this before? Like, has it been cold in the past and then got warm?
Right.
Well, we know that it has when human beings have been on the planet in a big way, because human beings, Homo sapiens, lived through an ice age where it was super cold. And then it got warm. There's even damn kids' cartoons, Ice Age.
Yeah.
About the glaciers melting. Like, you can go to Glacier National Park and they tell you this used to be covered by a glacier and then it receded, and it was the glacier receding that caused the land bridge that enabled people to come from Asia over to North America. So it's like, okay, so human beings have been on the planet when it was cold and it got much, much hotter. Were there SUVs? No. Were there power plants? No. Were there even 1 billion people? No. There was like maybe a couple million. Living as these environmentalists say we should be living off the land very simply and blah, 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 and all of this, hunting, and, they're basically just using their little fires and whatnot. So if it was cold and it got hot, and none of the shit that you're blaming was the cause, first, don't you have to eliminate that cause from before you say, so how could you possibly, tell me why. First, you have to tell me why it was cold before and it got warm. You have to tell me. Because if you can't tell me why that was, we must first assume that the reason why it's getting warmer now is the same fucking reason.
It's the same thing, yep.
It's the same reason. Like, if you go and you eat a whole large pizza with jalapenos on it, and then the next morning you've got the runs, and it's like fire coming out of your ass, and then a week later you eat the exact same fucking pizza, but you binge watch past episodes of Game of Thrones, and then it's fire coming out of your ass in the morning, you don't blame it on the dragon in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, shit.
You ate the fucking pizza before, you ate the pizza now, you have the same, so you got to tell me what's the pizza. What's the pizza that stopped the Ice Age before? Have you has anybody said anything? Has anybody told you? Are these climate scientists, these great climate scientists that they know for sure, absolutely sure, it is your fucking car. It's your goddamn car that's doing this. Really? Really? Well, what did it before? Since you know what's doing it now, right? You should easily be able to tell me what did it before. I'm waiting. Here's the other thing. They want to say that it's carbon dioxide. They want to say that the relationship is more carbon dioxide in the air causes the world to get hotter. That's what this whole thing is about. Greenhouse gases. More carbon dioxide in the air causes the world to get hotter. Okay, so meaning more free carbon dioxide is the cause of the world getting hotter. Okay. You've been a bartender before. All right? And I'm assuming you've changed kegs.
Yeah.
Many times, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You've changed out the kegs for the tap on the beer. When you go to change out the kegs and you put a fresh keg in, what is the temperature of the keg that you're putting in?
It's cold. It's sitting in the cooler.
They're always kept cold, aren't they? Why? What happens if it's not cold?
The bubbles of gas will build up and actually I don't know, but I'm just
that's absolutely right. You do know. So if it's freezing cold, you get less head, don't you?
Yeah.
Like the colder it is, the less head. If it's warmer, you get more bubbles.
Right, more bubbles.
Why? Because you have more free gas inside the keg. So here's the keg.
Makes sense, yeah.
The keg is a closed environment. You've got liquid and you've got gas. What's that gas? Do you know what it's CO2. It's carbon dioxide. It's carbon dioxide. The reason that you keep beer in kegs cold, and anybody at home can do this with 2 cans of beer. Take 2 cans of beer, put one in the refrigerator, and leave one out. Then take them both and open them both at the same time. See which one has more gas, more head coming out. See which one has more free carbon dioxide. Because the reason why is the colder water is, the colder liquid is, the more carbon dioxide it can hold and dissolve. The hotter it is, the less carbon dioxide. So it's actually the reverse. It's not that more carbon dioxide. So in other words, you pumping carbon dioxide into your keg doesn't make the keg hotter. But heating the keg up releases carbon dioxide out of the beer and into the free area.
Right.
So it's not that more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere makes the earth hotter. It's that when the earth is hotter, there's more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It's like if what the climate scientists were saying was the case, if the causal relationship was true, no bar would put their kegs in the refrigerator. You wouldn't keep beer cold to stop the bubbles. We see it every day, but people are so ignorant and they're so propagandized to that they will ignore the shit that they see every day. Every bottle and can of a carbonated beverage is a little closed environment of majority liquid and carbon dioxide. You can do this experiment all day, every day. The earth is the same thing. It's just in a round ball. Majority water and gas. The laws, so the climate scientists, this whole thing is, but that's collectivism. You can suspend 3rd grade science. You can suspend the laws of physics. You can change around words. You can make words mean things that they don't mean. Because if you can get somebody to believe that shit, contrary to everything that they've seen ever in their entire life, then you've got them. If you can get somebody to disregard their own reality, that they see and they feel with their own 5 senses, you've got them. So people who are actually going to go and listen to Al Gore do his ridiculous little dance and try to justify all the mistakes that he made and all the wrong predictions that he made. This is really, I saw the trailer for that Al Gore, The Inconvenient Sequel, and I'm like, there's one scene where he's like trying to justify the fact that he had said that by now Manhattan would be flooded. Mm-hmm. He's like, well, when I said that Grand Central Station would be flooded, with the waters would rise and Grand Central Station would be flooded, and then he shows like a thing from Hurricane Sandy where it's like, Hurricane Sandy has flooded Grand Central Station, and he's like, see, the storms. I really meant the storms. That's what I meant. No, it wasn't that the sea level would necessarily rise. It was just that there would be a storm or something. It's climate change is good. And it's like, dude, because it's a dogma. It's a religion. Mm-hmm. It's the collectivist religion. So
there's a, how does this go? I'll think of it in a minute. It's a magic trick that relates to that.
Oh, that's right. Yes, illusion.
Yeah. There's
well, this is the basis of illusion, isn't it? That it's part of if you can get them to believe the first set of simple, because you work through it, don't you? It's a progression in a show. Mm-hmm. You go from simple acts, the ones that don't require you to really disbelieve a lot, and you keep moving them, don't you?
That's what it is. So it's actually, it kind of relates to cold reading and stuff like that. But basically, you say you want to force a card on somebody, and you have them pick two cards, and you say, which one would you like to pick? And it doesn't matter which one they pick. You just either pick it, choose it, say, okay, we'll use this one, or okay, we'll remove this one. Doesn't matter which one that they choose.
Oh, because they don't know what the next step is.
Exactly.
So they pick it, and then they're picking the one you eliminate if it's not the one you want.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, man. Well, that's it.
It's what
that's what Al Gore's doing. It's an illusionist trick.
Uh-huh.
Oh, thanks for that. So we have. I think we're coming up on. Yeah, man. Why don't we do this? Why don't you go ahead and bring Eric on?
Okay.
And we can actually, why don't you, go to break. Go ahead. Eric's waiting. Go ahead and just call him. Okay. And then we'll come back and we will have our interview with our guest today, Eric July, lead vocalist for BackWordz. Welcome back to the Vin Armani Show. We are streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Vin Armani. Also on Twitter and Periscope at Vin Armani is my handle there. And we are streaming live on Facebook, on the Facebook page of our content partner, Activist Post, facebook.com/Activist Post. So we are about to get into our interview now in the second hour. And before we do that, I just want to let you know that we have had a great response to our new newsletter, Counter Markets. And my article in this month's newsletter issue is about how there's never been a better time to be self-employed. So we're about to have an interview with an independent musician. That is one of the realms that has seen in the last decade a great surge of people finding a great amount of success in being self-employed in that regard and getting out of the corporate music industry. And so we're definitely going to talk to our guest about that. What I do want to say before we go to that interview is this is your last opportunity at countermarkets.com to go and to get what we are calling our founders discount. Since this was our inaugural month, it's a much lower subscription rate. If you go to countermarkets.com and sign up, regardless of when you do that, whether you do that this month, next month, or any of the months after, you are going to get your first issue for free. But But on Wednesday, on the 5th, we are going to be releasing our new issue, our April issue, and the subscription rate is going to go up significantly. So you've got a great opportunity. If you're a viewer of this show, we have not rolled out our full marketing blitz yet. So you're going to get a discount. You're going to get the first inaugural month of Counter Markets for free, and then the ability to get a discount on your subscription if you'd like to continue with that. So countermarkets.com, trends and strategies for maximum freedom. We've got this. In our inaugural edition, we have, of course, this article that I'm discussing there. We had a great article about automation, 3D printing, and our cryptocurrency and silver reports, which were, by the way, spot on. There were cryptocurrencies that we were discussing about the best alternative cryptocurrencies. One in particular that we really, really like at Counter Markets is Dash. And at the time that we put the issue out and that we were saying this is a way to go, it was at $18 per Dash coin. It's now, I believe, somewhere around 120. So it would have, just buying one would more than have paid for a year's subscription to Counter Markets. And every month we're going to be making these predictions. These are markets that we really follow closely. So countermarkets.com, go sign up, get your first issue free, and take advantage of the founders discount. So now we're going to go to our interview with Eric July, lead vocalist of BackWordz. But before we do that, for those of you who are not familiar with this band, and they are awesome, want to give you just a little taste. If we could show this BackWordz video, and then we will go in with our interview with Eric.
In Iowa, New Hampshire, the race is very, very...
They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists. The big lie.
That the greed and recklessness and illegal behavior of Wall Street. We're forced
who have been killed by police officers. There needs to be a concerted effort for President of the United States.
I'm living wins, the gimmicking wins from beginning to end. No gimmick, if I rap it, dude, I live it then. And you can't do it, so ain't no need for mimicking. I'm not innocent, I'm on a mission, so let me finish it. Matter of time before they summon the army in. I'm probably on the FBI's most wanted list. I'm probably gonna end up hung like an ornament. I'm on a life mission to abolish all the government. It's dumb and I'm beyond pissed, so we gon' cut to the chase and get rid of metaphorical nonsense. None of that eloquent bogusness. I want you to know what it is, sucker kid. Y'all people keep voting now. The rock hell is never the die. I'll be on my phone and trust the sky. You were told the phone just can't tell you the right. After mistake, after mistake, after mistake. Believe me, this ain't the typical older government's corrupt, bro. It's too easy. You gotta take responsibility because you willingly give power to the state when it's the state that is your enemy. Stuck on stupid, you gotta be on it. Crime and violence, but they got a monopoly on it. And you keep on buying into what that man say, not knowing that every man takes just a special stride. Look around and tell me what you say, because it's coming down, are you listening? Stop and look, this is what I made. Yeah, it's going down, it's going down. Now look, it ain't really hard to keep up. The politicians just hypnotize you.
I get some. Thank you. Eric July is a writer, speaker, political commentator, and lead vocalist for the metal band BackWordz. Eric is a former leftist turned anarcho-capitalist who prides himself in breaking down economics, race, and statism for the common man to understand. Eric uses the platform given to him by his band and his social media following to inform the public on the dangers of the state. Eric July, welcome to the Vin Armani Show.
Man, what's good? I am glad to be back, man. This is always a treat for sure.
Oh, and I'm glad to have you back because you're just off tour. You have just released Veracity, which is a BackWordz debut album, which, by the way, is amazing. And congratulations. Right now, as I looked at it, iTunes, steady 5-star rating, man. Like,
yeah, man, it's been crazy. It's been crazy, man. Like the amount of, I mean, we're all the pre-orders are long. Before, when we launched the little pre-order campaign, we long exceeded what a lot of people thought a band of our tier is supposed to do. And once the release actually came out, which was as of Friday, you can see with us being, where it's kind of hanging around between 4th and 7th, and iTunes metal charts, and that's huge. I don't think people really understand. I think once the Billboard charts come out on the 10th, it's going to really put into perspective what we just did, and pretty much self-funding this entire deal. And really landing a spot on the chart. There's bands that are, above a tier. Well, they like to think they're a tier above us, signed to these record labels with all of these resources, and we're creaming them on first week sales. So it goes to show that you can, and I love what you were saying and what you're doing with counter markets and stuff like that. It goes to show that something like that can be done. So as long as you kind of understand what you're doing, and I believe we're all anarchists, so we have to, I think, question how things have always been done, and that's what I did with the music industry. You got these deals and whatnot that have been industry standard, and I was just like, why do we have to do it like that? Why does the artist have to get shafted? Why do I have to go through all of this? Why can't I be the one to put the money to pay you to go put my album out there, as opposed to the other way around? So it's been a very, very special moment. The tour was amazing. I got to meet a lot of new fans, but just in general, to see the reception that we're getting from being able to self-fund this release has been amazing.
I mean, and it's one thing to have the type of, and I mean, look, I spent a long time in the music industry. What you guys are doing is laudable. Like, it's really to be appreciated. But to be doing that with an album that has song titles like individualism, self-ownership, statism, praxeology, right? A nod to the Austrian economics, state theists, utopias don't exist. I mean, you are the, I think we've been waiting. I mean, 20 years ago, the left certainly had like Rage and whatnot.
Right.
There has not been a sort of we have not had our own protest songs, as it were. You know what I mean? And it's so important as a culture, right? If you don't have the music to go along with it, it's very hard to be inspired. Picture worth 1,000 words, but a good track worth 10,000. Can you tell us a little bit, since you are, hopefully, I know you're not the last, especially seeing this sort of success, right? So talk to us about how BackWordz came to be, and maybe if you could tell that through the vein of your own sort of coming of age into this political view that you have.
Well, I mean, it was all kind of perfect time. I think God works kind of in mysterious ways, man, how this all kind of came about, because I had left my previous band, and it was an interesting kind of take. I really didn't even know what route I was going to pursue in terms of music, and all of that. I was getting more vocal about the politics and stuff, about being anti-political, so to speak, and getting more versed and knowledgeable on things. And 2015 came rolling around, late 2014, and these group of guys came together. Our producer, now Corey, actually co-signed these guys, and was like, man, you guys, we had all left previous bands, so we had all made those mistakes. You know what I mean? So this was the first time that we got a chance to really just be like, you know what, let's set a goal as far as what we're going to do. We're going to come out with these couple of songs, and then we're going to hit them over the face with this message that we believe in. And BackWordz has been the first project that I've ever been a part of musically that I didn't have to hit an off switch. So me as a rapper, me as a person that loves metal and hardcore music, and me as a person that, as an anarchist, I believe in abolition, of the state, and I believe in a free and, voluntary society. So being able to do that and kind of infiltrate the culture, I think, has always been important. I was a guy that, I was a Garrett Johnson supporter back in 2012, and a guy that was very, very fond of Ron Paul. And I just started to think critically, and it's not to knock, the crap on any of those guys, but my place as far as activism is not really within the political realm. Mine is infiltrating of culture, because the politics are more so the lagging indicator of that. So I made my mind up that I was going to really, that's where we lack. There's no, like you mentioned, yes, the left has their kind of, you have those punk guys, and you have guys like Rage and all these guys who, yeah, they might say some good stuff, but as far as our line of thinking, it's not really there. They don't, those guys were, staunch, supporters of the red and black anarchism, which isn't really what I'm too fond of. And we didn't have any kind of representation. So I figured that this is where we need to start. There's no representation. I will take all the shots. I'll be a trailblazer. And we've came with a lot. It's a lot of grimy stuff that happens. If you've been in the music industry, then you understand how grimy this industry is as far as if you do lean our way in terms of politics, the amount of, you're going to have that kind of establishment who are going to try to suppress you. We've gotten, tour offers taken from us, and I won't go into too much detail on big one. I mean, massive ones, but just because I came out, like opposed state funding of Planned Parenthood, it got me in trouble. You know what I mean? So that kind of stuff, it comes with it. But I hope to at least, we kind of forcefully kind of created that path, because now you see what's going on with our album and where it's at right now on the charts and billboards and stuff like that, and where all of that's going. Hopefully I inspire other artists to get out there and do it, and maybe I'll take the slack for right now, but I would hope to create a new wave of a lot of artists that come out here and are proud of being, people that, believe in, property rights, self-ownership, and non-aggression, and some of those beautiful things. And even us, and getting off that tour, talking to some of these bands that are, pretty big, it was cool to be able to talk to their instrumentalists who are like closet libertarians. And it's like, they know that if they came out with those views, even though they have them, they would be knocked. And they credit our band for being, proud to be it, and we wear it on our sleeve, as opposed to trying to keep it under wraps just for the simple fact that we will be knocked. So it's been a wonderful experience, and it comes a lot comes with this kind of territory, because you are going to have that establishment that's involved in music that are going to try to suppress you. But I think right now we're seeing the beginning stages that at some point, with the power of the internet and with the power of just having such a following that really believes in this message, they can only suppress it for so long.
So I wanted to talk with you a little bit about this idea that you're bringing up in terms of the bands being closet libertarians, and musicians have always, to my mind, and always being in the music industry, are certainly, most of their views are very socially, what you would call maybe classically liberal. Most artists don't want to be held back by the state or by authority, by nature, which it often seems weird that they would skew to the left.
Right.
You've been very vocal in your writing, and also, your speaking, your political commentary, in really making these sorts of connections to say, look, various people, various groups, you're inconsistent in the way that you're going. And one of the things that I wanted to speak with you about, being half black and half Mexican myself, and being a libertarian, you speak about race, which is something that is always a touchy subject. For me, and this is something that with certainly the guys that I've grown up with, who are, for the most part, very educated black men who lean hardcore left, almost onto the socialist side, sitting down and saying, look, historically, everything that has been good for our people has been a limitation of government. That everything that we champion as our victories for black people has been taking away government's power to institute certain laws or to regulate certain things. We have benefited from almost exclusively libertarian actions. And certainly voluntarism comes from, it traces back to abolition, right? And the abolition movement. If you could just speak a little bit on this, I think that you've been very coherent in, if you could just how does being a black man in America inform your anarchism? Right.
Well, you know what I mean? I've written several, and you mentioned it, several articles on this. and was talking about if black people just really extended things to the logical conclusion, when they bring up history, they would be proud libertarians when you consider what has been done to black people just in this country. And it's not even anything that's exclusive to this country. You can go in Africa, countries in Africa and South America, and seeing the black experience and how it has been bettered, because of taking the government's power away. You know what I mean? And I've spoken about this in terms of, right when blacks, fresh off the boat, whether they were sold by their own people or stolen, it was, you had the slave codes implemented. You had the black code, you had the Fugitive Slave Acts, and all of these. This prime example of statism was the core issue here. And it kept going all the way, to Jim Crow. And you had all these Supreme Court cases like the Plessy versus Ferguson, and all those sorts of cases in which it was essentially the government saying that you don't have rights because you are a black person. So I'm sitting here thinking, and it took that kind of critical thinking and reading up on the likes of obviously hearing their commentary, like the Walter Williams of the world, hearing their commentary on it. I'm just like, wait a minute, all the things that we even crying about right now, like, people want to talk about, some of these statistics are a little off when people want to talk about, black folks getting the short end of the stick when it comes to the criminal justice system and stuff like that. But let's assume that is to be the case. The problem is it's the state, right? It's just the problem is the state in which they have this kind of territorial monopoly on use of force and violence, and they use it kind of willy-nilly and indiscriminate or discriminately in this case, and that is the core issue. So I hate when I hear people like, a lot of these black folks. I'm speaking to local folks around like the NAACPs of the world and trying to speak to them and get them to understand. It's like, you guys go around talking about criminal justice reform, and I don't like that term because it still assumes that they should still have the power to enforce these laws or to make these laws. That's not the issue. Is that they have the power to make these laws in the first place. So let's abolish the laws. Let's abolish these institutions of power, instead of trying to give them a new set of rules when they don't already follow the ones that they have. And historically, that's been the case. So it was a big part of me becoming a libertarian, and I hit the anarchist mark almost immediately. It wasn't any kind of gradual 6-month build up or anything like that. It was like libertarian anarchist off the rip, because I started to think critically about this and extending some of what the Souls of the world and Walter Williams of the world and what they were saying, and some of the highlights that they were bringing from an economics perspective, but also from a social perspective in terms of what the Walter Williams' great kind of documentary as well as book on the state against blacks. That was another one, and just really extended some of that to the logical conclusion. I'm like, man, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. Why does this institution have to exist? So if blacks and any minority for that case, and it's not just exclusive to the minority, white folks, this is going to them as well. When you look at where a lot of these issues stem from, is from the state. So it's all about acknowledging that, and as opposed to holding on, and this is what a lot of black folks and a lot of other minorities do right now, hold on to the idea that, well, it's okay that they have the power, they're just not using it right. And they really don't understand what the state is if they are having that approach, because the nature of the state and they have no incentive to do right.
It's very interesting. I tweeted this actually a couple of days ago, that all of these people that I see gravitating towards socialism, minorities gravitating towards socialism, and saying, oh, well, socialism will protect minority rights. And I'm like, well, the word Bolshevik literally means member of the majority. Yep. It's like, yep. I think everybody who wasn't a Bolshevik, that meant they were the minority, and I think we know how that turned out. Didn't turn out too good. So you bring up Williams and Soul, and I think that that's maybe a good jumping off point for the next question that I had for you, because it's something that you have a very nuanced view on. Both of those gentlemen, brilliant, have definitely informed my understanding of economics. Both of those gentlemen also have and I don't know whether this is just by default because of their views, but they definitely have an affinity for the political right, particularly what would traditionally be the Republican Party. And our first story today, we were talking about this Freedom Caucus that's coming about in the Republican Party. That's definitely in the vein of Ron Paul. Certainly Rand Paul is on the Senate side and some new guys in the Congress. I know that you are definitely open to speaking with Republicans, people on the political right. I know that you're comfortable with that. I know that you see some solutions there. There are definitely anarchist purists who have a problem with that, and you've commented on that. If you could just give your view on why you feel that there is some space for us to be having these discussions and affiliations with the political right, Republicans in particular, but I mean it could be libertarians or whoever. Right.
Well, my thing is that I'm not a libertarian that's in the center of the universe, and I would never pretend like I am. For example, this past election and probably going forward for a long time, I don't see myself really participating in the political. I'll comment on it, but I don't see myself participating in the political process as far as voting and campaigning and doing stuff like that. Mainly, it's not because of the logic necessarily behind it that I'm against. It's more so that I don't feel like the battle is going to be won in that realm. I think this is a culture war that we're dealing with. It's not necessarily participating. And a lot of times the politics side is a waste of time if you completely ignore the cultural aspect. However, I will say that I've been very, very successful in really bringing that libertarian message to the political right, and they have been more, accepting to libertarianism, extended all the way to anarchism. And I think that historically it's been the case. This isn't something I just kind of came up with. If you look at the history of libertarianism, definitely in America, and where they've leaned to in terms of influence and stuff like that, it's kind of been, at least in comparison. It's not to say that the political right is good. That you've never heard that ever come out of my mouth. I think they're bad in a lot of sense, and we're seeing this kind of with Donald Trump campaign, that in often cases they can be worse than Democrats on some issues. But I think there's a big difference between, and this goes for the Democrats as well, to be fair, than people that vote for these people as opposed to what the politicians do when they get in office. Because I've done a lot of activism on all ends. Me as a musician, the entire music world leans left. You know what I mean? But I've had a great success. Most of the people that I've ever converted, not using reason, just straight music and emotion, have been leftists. Just period. You know what I mean? That's just the fact of the matter. And that more so speaks to the fact that, most people that jam this kind of music and are involved in this game are leftists. But if I'm going to go out my way and use like reason, and this is what I mean when I talk about talking to the political right, is that if I'm going to use reason, if I can approach it, I believe that the backbone of this, what I adopt, is property rights. So I'm able to speak on that towards them because they'll often agree. In comparison to their leftist counterparts, the political right speaks more positively about, even if they don't extend it to the logical conclusion, they speak more positively about capitalism, about property rights, about lowering of taxes or getting rid of this stuff. Problem is, again, they don't extend it to the logical conclusion. Definitely when you talk about like the police and the military and stuff like that. But I can at least have that conversation without them jumping down my throat. And I've been very, very open about this. On Revolver magazine, we released a video of me actually at the inauguration of Donald Trump talking to a lot of these people, and it was like crazy to find as much common ground. I'm me being a person that's against all states regardless, being able to approach them and have a conversation without them wanting to take it to fisticuffs was an amazing kind of eye-opening experience. So that's what I mean. But I will say, first and foremost, that I don't believe, left or right, that libertarians should feel as if they have to make some type of alliance in order to get this like this message out. That I think is false. I think that's silly. Granted, I believe that if you are going to be to a free, kind of bring about a free society, you're going to have to converse with people that do not think like you. And I say if I'm going to use reason, I'm going to do that with the political right as opposed to the political left. Even though I've influenced I know I have more leftists than I have the political right, but I'm not using reason with these people when I'm talking to music and stuff like that. It's a cool way, and that's why I love music, because it taps into people's emotions. Sometimes you don't even know what you're thinking, what you're listening to until after the fact when you've processed everything. So that's what I mean. But I want to say first and foremost, though, that I don't think there has to be like a stone cold alliance with either side in order to actually spread this movement. But I will say that if you are going to do it and you're going to try to use reason, I think that the political left is you're wasting a lot of scarce resources in your time in doing that, if that is your case. But more power to people that think that they're somehow going to have success along those lines.
That is such a great point, and it's rare to speak with an artist who is as articulate as you are, and is able to actually do both, is as talented and is as philosophically articulate as you are. And I had, honestly, this is the first time that I've ever really thought of the idea that, it's art that moves the left and it's logic that moves the right. You got to have both, which brings me to exactly what a concept that's been coming up. I spoke about this with Judd Weiss. We had a similar conversation about artists in the libertarian movement, or as I should say, the scarcity it appears of artists. We actually, in 2 weeks, Amir One is going to be on. I'm interested in bringing more artists on, but it seems like there's the left has all the artists in the world, right? And would Barack Obama have been elected the first time were it not for the Shepherd Ferry Hope and Change posters? I don't know, but it certainly swayed. That swayed the left in a big way.
Got me back in 2007. It got me. So
there you go.
Right,
me too. I was saying at the beginning of the show, that was the last vote that I ever made, was my first vote for Barack Obama, and then I said it's done. So what I want to ask you about, having done this, being an artist, interacting with other artists, certainly, musicians, maybe they're not necessarily of the same political, putting their politics forward as BackWordz does, but what do you think is missing? Because obviously because the message is inspirational, and especially I think people listening to your music and seeing the way that you present it, it can be as inspirational and as powerful as any political message that's ever been out there. What is missing to inspire artists to come in this direction?
Well, I think that it's a tough position to have. First and foremost, and you kind of touched on that when you say that this music, and if you've been in it, you can kind of view it and you can see that. But definitely, if you are a musician, definitely along our lines of thinking, and you're trying to kind of maneuver within the music business, you see how bad it really is when the left controls everything. And they have these guys on a string, which is why the Barack Obamas, of the world, and even Hillary Clinton is past. You talk about the two dominating artists of their genre, in Beyonce and Jay-Z, and they can get them just at any drop of a dime. They can get them to campaign. That is powerful. I don't think people understand this, and I think, and I can understand why somebody would be, I guess, fearful or scared to really put those, because you put a target on your back, straight up. You put a freaking target on your back when you're amongst this game, and you are trying to put a message out that goes in the direct opposition to these other people that generally dominate and call the shots. You have a target on your back, and we've seen that, and even we're only 2 years old, but we see that ourselves. So I think it's scared. People are scared, but in the same respects, you get those libertarians who also think that we should, they want to completely disregard that element of art, and I think that's kind of both of why we have you have one side that is scared, and then you have the other side that want to completely ignore it. I've had this conversation with people, libertarians all the time. I'm like, definitely the ones that are amongst the Libertarian Party that go politics, 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 and think that that's how this game is going to be won, and they put all their eggs, in a basket of politics. I'm like, you completely ignore culture. Like, that's not how this battle is going to win. It's never been that way. You've never seen a battle won when you talk about people kind of going towards your ideal and your ideology and your philosophy. It starts kind of in the culture, in the arts and stuff like that, and then it trickles down and kinds of spreads everywhere else, because again, politics are more so the lagging indicator of that. So libertarians need to stop ignoring that aspect. And I would also say, and this was probably a hard pill to swallow for a lot of them, because I had to realize this as well. I'm like, why am I putting all of my scarce resources and money and stuff like that towards people who I know are very, very influential, but speak in direct, like they're kind of diametrically opposed to what I believe in? And that was the hard pill for me to swallow, because I'll throw some funds their way to my favorite artists and stuff like that, who I like what they say and stuff like that. But I'm like, damn, I'm funding basically their ability to keep speaking this socialist nonsense to a lot of people. So I'm like, why don't libertarians use this? While I like the idea of kind of the counter economic of it all, and libertarians, you be surprised how we're seeing this with the BackWordz album, how much you can really boost people into really having platforms to get these ideas if you just put your resources in supporting them. And I'm not saying support them just because they're libertarians or just because they're anarchists or anything like that. I'm just saying acknowledge that and kind of weigh your options here. Would it make more sense to fund somebody's efforts that are putting forth some type of art that is along your lines of thinking, or would you rather put this money, probably spend more for the same product, and put your money towards these people who are going to get out there on TV and use their platform to speak in opposition to what it is that you actually believe in? So that's why I love supporting people who have their own, are kind of, along our lines of thinking, and they have their own products that they're kind of producing on the art side, as well as just in a kind of the market side. I like to support them and use my funds to help them out before I go directly to some popular artist who I might, like their music, but I know, again, they're going to use the power that they have to speak in opposition to what I believe in. So I think that's where the focus kind of is going to have to be. You're going to have to kind of get out that, all right, well, I'm scared. I know I'm going to have a target on my back if I use my art, but at the same respect, stop ignoring the artistic part of things and realize how much power you wield, and even in the libertarian and anarchist community, how much power you guys wield. And it's a lot of talented people within our community, and I think it would do us a great benefit if we went out there and supported them.
I want to talk about the platforms that because you are probably the most of the sort of big name libertarians, as it were, and especially the younger set. And I was shocked when I was doing research for this at how young
I am. Yeah, people always think I'm like in my 30s, man.
Oh
I'm
my God, because you are so talented and so intelligent. I was like, this dude is in his mid-20s. Oh my God, in 10 years he is going to be an absolute beast.
For sure,
but,
man.
But what I wanted to talk with you about is, because you are utilizing from social media, music, certainly, you're out there doing interviews like this, and even on larger platforms, mainstream media platforms. But in addition, hosting shows, doing podcasts, doing a lot of live broadcasts and live commentary, interacting with the audience, interacting on Twitter. I wanted to talk with you because, as you say, we do have a lot of power with the platforms, but with that power comes responsibility. And I know that, having access to those platforms and them being 24 hours, I fall victim to it myself sometimes. Something gets me riled up. What I wanted to talk with you about, because I feel like you have, and I won't go into because it's a little inside baseball, but you've been sort of on the sidelines because a lot of people with some of the conflicts that have gone on within particularly the anarchist sort of movement, with the people who have those platforms, who's, I think all of those people are very intelligent, particularly, are the younger guys. And I think that some people have gotten turned off by some of those conflicts.
Right.
look, we're libertarians, we're anarchists. We don't want somebody regulating things. We want there to be a free market of ideas. Do you feel that there is a point, and through going through this and seeing in these early growing pains of this movement, seeing the conflicts, do you think there is a point where it's incumbent on some of us to pull back? Or if it's not to pull back, what do you think we could be doing differently to make these conflicts actually productive and not to turn people off who are the audience that of this thing? What are your thoughts on that?
Right, that's a great point and a great question. I think a lot of people, I see it. I've been on the sidelines, and sometimes I actually converse, and I'm friends with both sides of people that get into these conflicts within this movement. So my thing is, and I think it's very, very important, and I had to realize this, even if I disagree with some people that are within this movement. I think it's important to try to at least have productive conversations, as opposed to immediately jumping down people's throats simply because I disagree. Definitely, if it's a case to where I agree with you on 99% of things, but that one thing that I disagree with you on, I'm gonna hammer you home. You're not a libertarian, and it's like, these aren't really productive conversations. It's one thing to have a conversation with somebody and try to at least understand where it is that they're coming from. I've had to do that with people on both sides of for example, like the border conversation, which was a big conversation amongst the libertarian community, and hearing both sides. I mean, both sides, whether you agree or disagree, it's irrelevant. If you actually hear the arguments being made, they're not nonsense. You know what I mean? On both sides, they're not complete nonsense. And I think acknowledging that, and then having those more productive conversation and saying, all right, well, the idea is not necessarily to get you to believe what I want you to believe, but here is why I think the way I think, and here's why I think your position, which may be the opposite, is flawed. And we just have cordial conversations about it. It's going to do a lot, good for this movement. Not even just, and kind of chilling out with this whole beef and plex that goes on within people within this movement, but also kind of people adopting whatever view it is that they adopt, because you learn more when you have those kinds of conversations, and they're productive, they're cordial, they're respectful, and you're hearing that other person's other person's position, as opposed to immediately saying, like, this is nonsense and I'm going to turn you off. You know what I mean? I feel I've done this before in the past, and I've kind of had to look at myself in the mirror and say, well, is this really a productive? Even if I disagree with them, am I doing this movement a favor by constantly knocking this person because we agree on most of the issues, but on one particular position, which isn't a black and white issue by any means, I'm going to jump down their throat because of it? That's a little silly, you know what I mean, when you think about it. So I think it's all about approaching the conversation. I think the whole entire movement would do themselves a lot of justice if they approach the conversation as if they're trying to at least learn what the other, because a lot of this conversation and plex comes from people straw manning the other position, making a position up, saying, well, because you believe this, you believe that. Well, it's like, no, that's not really the case. You know what I mean? But they also shut their ears off because they're not even trying to hear what this person is trying to bring to the table. So I think it's very important for us to at least try to have those cordial and respectful conversations so we can move forward and we find out what is the libertarian position. But until we have those conversations and are respectful, we're not going to get anywhere. But we can do that while simultaneously trying to advance this movement, which is the point that I'm making. We don't have to be, and I think this is what happens amongst a lot of libertarians. We try to hash it out and beef on each other before we start to try to move forward. And I think we don't have to necessarily do that. So again, it's about understanding the other person's position before we jumping down their throat and trying to paint them as a non-libertarian or a non-anarchist and stuff like that. Because I see some of these conversations, like you said, I'm on the sideline a lot of times, and I'm like, what are we really arguing about this? Like we got the state, constantly intruding in people's on people's rights, and because y'all disagree on one damn subject matter, we're really going to try to jump down each other's throats and, essentially, knock this person publicly, humiliate this person who might be doing a lot of good for the movement just because we disagree on that one thing. I think that's a little silly, and it doesn't really help this movement.
Well, I have to say I think that this movement is blessed to have you in it, and I think that this is just the beginning. But what an auspicious start with this album, Veracity, BackWordz debut album. Where's the best place? I know that they could buy it all over, but for you guys, where's the best place for them to purchase and support this album and merch, etc.?
Right. Well, obviously, we have our website, but we have a specific merch website, BackWordz.merchnow.com. And you can go get like the physical copy of the album and the bundle itself there. Obviously, right now, you can get it anywhere, iTunes, but if you want to help us the most, that's where. But again, those kind of get, you start looking at spending maybe $20 or more. But if you just want, to support us in the digital copy, you can still get those, obviously, in iTunes, Amazon, Google. It's everywhere. And right now, it's very, very key. It's very, 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 very key that we try to reel people in to support us for the first week. I mean, the album came out on the 31st. First week sales go all the way to the 6th, I believe, of April. And that's going to count. That's what's going to be our best chance to really chart. And we're going to chart. It's not a matter of if we're going to chart on the hard rock charts, for example. It's a matter of where. We're in a good position to really get top 10. And but we need more people. Yes, I understand people want to stream it on Spotify and Apple Music, but do that after you buy it. You know what I mean? At least for us, just do it after you purchase it, because it's going to go a lot longer in terms of putting us in a position to continue to put this message out there and be influential in that regards. If you actually purchase the album, whether it be on BackWordz.merchnow.com, you can get cool little shirts. You see people post pictures all day long with their cool bundles and hoodies and stuff that they're getting. You can get that there, but just at least buy the copy somewhere legitimate, because that's going to go a long way. Because those first week sales, man, in this music game, man, that's what determines really the opportunities that you're going to get pretty much on every front. So if you can, man, keep showing support. We got a lot of people that have been showing the support here, and I appreciate that. But we got like to the 6th as far as first week sales. So if you haven't got it, you're on the fence, go ahead and cop it. I mean, hell, it's $10.
So yeah, the link is in the description, and I think we've been flashing a link through this whole thing.
Yeah.
If you follow Eric on Twitter or on Facebook, you'll definitely get the links there, or following BackWordz. Eric July, I want to thank you for being on the show. Hope to have you back again, and I know this is going to be a good week. And man, for a first album, like, just again, congratulations, man! Congratulations with everything that you're doing. So on the way out, I just wanted to hit the people with my favorite little piece that you've got up on YouTube, which is Volume 2 of the ANCAP rap, man. This is absolutely genius. So Eric July, thank you very much for being on the show. We'll see you again soon.
All right, man. Be easy. Appreciate it.
Yo, I've been wanting to get on this beat since, man, I was in middle school. ANCAP Rap Part 2, Rippers Raps Part 3, Outnumbered, BackWordz, let's eat. For starters, guys, I'd like to apologize, cause I ain't been too timely with this rhyming. Yet to your surprise, I'm back with ANCAP Rap Part 2. And otherwise, I still highly advise you still undermine these other guys. It's just a minor hiccup, but the current election got you up in arms like you on the wrong end of a stick up. Yes, these cats suck, but it's the baby you have made. When you get schooled by politicians, you just bend over and take it, face it. Every election, y'all just tend to side with tyrants blind who find creative ways to pack initiating violence. And all the sides argue, but it's circular. A lockdown, not understanding neither of them had the moral high ground, and by now you think that you understand the notion, or just know that you a puppet. They just play on your emotion. If you're focused, I suppose that you would see right through the vocals and see he might be a joker. You should stop being hopeful of a politician on a solid mission. The side effect is that you get nothing out of it but false promises. The nature of politics is beyond obvious, but you dumb and you follow it, and it's you funding all of it. A Democrat can't tax you into prosperity. Understand what I mean? And when stop listening to Keynesians. Robert Reich's an idiot, Paul Krugman's oblivious. Their only job is to make government seem legitimate. Economic illiterates who think they can stimulate the economy by throwing trash on the ground. How does that sound? Needs an Austrian smackdown, cause I don't trust your thesis. You should read less Keynes and a lot more Mises. you'll get taxed till you ain't got nothing left. My bad, I almost forgot to say taxation and stepping to the left. Such a hard thing to accept, so I say it one more time. Taxation is theft, not the price of civilization. It's nothing but extortion. You work hard for every dime, and yet the state demands a portion, and you don't give them the money. They say go come and force it, and they'll lock you in a cage if you choose not to endorse it. That's a racket, and it's backed by physical forces. You choose to resist the dudes in armor, i.e. Eric Gardner. Screw your social contract, Jack. I tell you what, go grab a copy of that. Gladly wipe it on my butt crack. That's how much it means to me. Seems to be that you fools not believing me or seeing what you achieving is thievery. You a fraud humanitarian, a blatant faker who uses the poor as an excuse to rob his neighbor. You a hater who too lazy to raise it on his own and too much of a coward to rob other people's homes, so he begged the government to do it. He's so foolish thinking that raising a minimum wage will be a net gain. It's an artificial price on labor. You still last in the income bracket, so your buying power is that in. It's like a form of inflation. Speaking of that, be it the Fed Reserve robbing you, you don't know what it is. Got the bogus inflation rates, $1 went a long way, and now it won't even buy you a stick of gum. What it's worth? Y'all crying about rich people at the state and this monopoly money. Let the rich get it first in the banks. You think that you would try to research, but yet you vote for state expenses, so you gotta be dirt. Try to silence them, but your mind's gone. Need to find one. Crying about corporations, you can't even define one. You don't know jack, but you continue to splurt words. That's why you Bernie Sanders supporters get on my darn nerve. Next fool ask me who gon' build the roads, gon' make me violate the nap, so would you please shut your trap? Humans can make a dang smartphone, but now they can't figure out how to put concrete on the ground to get to and fro. Hope you know that ain't even logical. You're thinking that's warped backwards. I'm hoping that you gotta know it's inconsistent as well. By that logic, how can they govern millions if they can't govern themselves? But anyway, yeah, Donald Trump sucks, but I get a kick out of the house, steady pissing y'all off. It's true, he's an authoritarian, a little annoying, but he and Bernie are on different sides of the same coin. So if you scared of one, gotta be scared of the other. To me, they seem to be brothers. I don't put nothing above them. I just sit back and look at the facts, and it seems to look and sound that the only thing burning is Bernie's campaign to the ground. Stimulus. Shout out to all the end caps out there. It seems the only spot where we disagree is how do we bring about the stateless society, you know what I mean? Some say we should just starve the beast. Some say we should utilize the political process. Me personally, I ain't gonna sit and get in that childish argument. I don't care how you do it. It's a place for everything. Whatever your lane is, educate people, you do it. Whether you participate in the political process and support people like Ron Paul, or you just say no, don't matter to me. I got love for you. And BackWordz, we got a lot coming on the way. It's gonna be a big year.
Yes, indeed. Wow. It is good to know that we have a lot of talented young libertarians getting it in. Christian, man, he's great. He's great. He's awesome. He's great. Like, and the fact that I think he's like 26.
That's
I'm
crazy.
like, when this dude's 35. Oh man. No, but look, I love what he said, and he hit the nail on the head that he's out there converting them on both sides, but you don't convert the left with logic. Mm-hmm. You convert them with feels. It's feels on the left and facts on the right.
Yep.
And that's an important thing to understand. And I think that it's something that we, as freedom-loving people, need to really get with really quick.
Isn't that the way the brain?
It is left and right brain.
Left and right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
left brain, right brain.
Interesting.
But I think it's the right, well, they're reversed. So I believe it's the right brain that is the analytical brain. Uh-huh. And it is I believe I'm getting this right. And it's the left brain that is the more emotional side. So, yeah, great stuff, man. I mean, we need more artists. Yeah. Clearly. You and I both as people who appreciate art, and trying to bring, look, we bring an aesthetic to what we do. Yep. It's important. It's something that you don't even realize is there, and it does affect you. Mm-hmm. And we have to be good at that. And I think we should celebrate the artists that we have because we don't have a lot of them. And as Eric said, it takes a lot of bravery because look, it's principle over profit. Mm-hmm. I'm very much in the same boat. I mean, I talk about it all the time. Like, these are views that I've held for a long time, but, I've been on TV since 2010. And, you only just hear it in the last 6 months. So for the same reason, because holding these political views is not where people in the entertainment industry are at. And, you worry, am I going to lose something by doing this? Am I going to alienate certain people? And am I not going to be able to pay my bills because of it? But the truth of the matter is, as you see, that there are people within this who want to support. So those artists out there who feel this, man, yeah, come out of the closet, please, because we're here to support. Take a look at BackWordz. Take a look at how their album is selling. Take a look at how it's about to chart on iTunes. No, it's about to chart in Billboard in the top 10 in their genre as an independently funded, independent band, because they're speaking from the heart. And when you speak from the heart, man, your message is going to be on point. Always on point. Talented people get the job done. Our final story, we have a little bit of time, so maybe we'll get into this. Our final story is about another talented individual and somebody that we cover quite a bit. Elon Musk. Let's just go ahead.
I don't think most people understand just how quickly machine intelligence is advancing. It's much faster than almost anyone realizes, even within Silicon Valley. And certainly outside Silicon Valley, people really have no idea. So
why is that dangerous?
I mean, if there's a super intelligent, particularly if it's engaged in recursive self-improvement, if there's some digital super intelligence and its optimization or utility function is something that's detrimental to humanity, then it will have a very bad effect. It could be just something like getting rid of spam email or something, and it's like concludes, well, the best way to get rid of spam is to get rid of humans.
But why would we lose?
The source of all spam.
I know we've all watched HAL in 2001, but why would we lose control of our machines? There are no data points showing that our connection to machine has ever been loosened.
Actually, I think the thing to do would be to plot the progress of digital intelligence versus time, and then to maybe curve fit or extrapolate that progress and see where that leads.
But you're talking about machines that are not just intelligent, but have intentionality. Is that right?
They have the intention of their utility function,
which is what
absolute.
we programmed in, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But it can have unintended consequences.
So Elon Musk is scared of AI. Or is he scared of AI? This week brought up a lot of questions about how does Elon really feel about AI? Clearly, AI is going to be very, very important for Tesla and the self-driving cars. It's very important for SpaceX, which also this week, for the first time ever in history, amazing news, launched and re-landed a reusable rocket that they had previously launched and re-landed. This has changed the paradigm of the cost of space travel, or at least getting payloads out of Earth, off of Earth and into space, at least low Earth orbit. It has changed it dramatically. The dude changed the game. So that's amazing. Christian, do you remember, I'm sure you do, back Dave Chappelle Show.
Yep.
Charlie Murphy, True Hollywood Stories. The most famous one, which is Rick James.
Yeah.
Right before Rick James died, that came out, and then he died a couple weeks after that episode came out. Do you remember? It was a long one. It was almost a whole Chappelle Show episode. Do you remember? There's a part where Charlie Murphy's telling the story of being at his brother Eddie Murphy's house. Rick James comes over in muddy boots.
Yeah, I remember.
And he gets on the couch and he starts rubbing the mud from his boots into the couch. And they cut to Rick James in front of the green screen talking head, and he says, "Now, how am I going to look rubbing some muddy boots into Eddie Murphy's couch?" Yeah, I rub my boots into Eddie Murphy's couch. And then it goes, and it rewinds, and then it shows it. we've kind of got that with Elon Musk right now. So do you have this Musk AI story? So this is this is all recent, and this is from this month. This is from Vanity Fair, as a matter of fact, and it says, excuse me. This one. Elon Musk's billion-dollar crusade to stop the AI apocalypse. Elon Musk is famous for his futuristic gambles, but Silicon Valley's latest rush to embrace artificial intelligence scares him, and he thinks you should be frightened too. Inside his efforts to influence the rapidly advancing field and its proponents, and to save humanity from machine learning overlords, Elon Musk began warning about the possibility of AI running amok 3 years ago. It probably hadn't eased his mind when one of Hasibi's partners in DeepMind, Shane Legg, stated flatly, quote, "I think human extinction will probably occur, and technology will likely play a part in this." Before DeepMind was gobbled up by Google in 2014 as part of its AI shopping spree, Musk had been an investor in the company. He told me that his involvement was not about a return on his money, but rather to keep a wary eye on the arc of AI. Quote, "It gave me more visibility into the rate at which things were improving, and I think we're really improving at an accelerating rate, far faster than people realize, mostly because in everyday life you don't see robots walking around, maybe a Roomba or something, but Roombas aren't going to take over the world." Okay, so that is how would I look rubbing my feet into Eddie Murphy's couch. In other words, AI is really, really horrible. So now let's do, yeah, I rub my feet into Eddie Murphy's couch. This is Neuralink. Also this week, from Engadget, Elon Musk's Neuralink will plug AI into your brain. Somewhere between rolling out new Teslas, launching reusable rockets, and digging a tunnel under Los Angeles, Elon Musk managed to start yet another new company. According to the Wall Street Journal report, Musk's latest project is called Neuralink, and its goal is to explore technology that can make direct connections between a human brain and a computer. As the journal reports, Musk has, quote, "an active role in the California-based neuroscience startup, which aims to create craniocomputers for treating diseases and eventually for building human-computer hybrids." During a conference last summer, Musk floated the idea that humans will need a boost of computer-assisted artificial intelligence if we hope to remain competitive as our machines get smarter. So, Christian, we've got AI. It's Elon Musk as Rick James. AI is our greatest existential threat. Let me plug your brain into AI. No. Yeah. Before the comic book guys in the YouTube comments get at me, I know. I know enough about AI. Okay, comic book guy, like, it's not, you don't have to do this. Oh, you're totally wrong. You know, you don't know there's two different types of AI. Musk is talking about digital AI, and that's the existential threat. But the threat is not modeling the human brain. So basically, let me explain. There are two sides to this AI debate. And it's two approaches. And it's to say, if we're going to make a super intelligent machine, there's two directions that we can go. We can either start with a machine, like a computer, like our computer, yep, and make it progressively more intelligent over time. And they already have, so there's this Turing test that Alan Turing, who's kind of the inventor of the computer, Benedict Cumberbatch stars as him in the movie The Imitation Game that came out a couple of years ago. Great movie. He broke the Enigma code during World War II by inventing essentially like the first computer, which was huge and was like clack, 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 making noise. So what they say is the Turing test is if you can make a computer if a computer simulation can fool a human, then it's that fool the human into believing that it is a human, then it's officially like an AI. And a couple years ago, a machine did pass the Turing test, but the thing was, the machine was pretending to be, I believe it was an 8-year-old boy for whom English was his second language. So in this, it is a little bit of a cheat that he was able to be like, oh, I don't really understand that, and was able to be like, oh, I think I just got it a little wrong, you know? So that's the digital side, and that's what most people see as AI, is this kind of the stuff that Google's doing, machine learning, algorithms, all of these. Okay. The other AI route is basically this idea that, okay, why don't we just completely map the human brain?
Yep.
If we want a superintelligence, let's completely map the human brain, and then let's just ramp up the processor power and the amount of memory. So it's like, in that case, you basically get a super intelligent human brain as opposed to creating this new species. And that's what that's the difference. Musk is like, okay, I'm going to invest in this side of it to try to beat this side, because the worry is this digital side, the side that's kind of, as he says, that it's just like completely logical, that has it can't have morals, it can't have ethics, which is important to us.
Yep.
Which is the reason why we don't kill each other, right? It can't have emotion. But if we fully map the human brain, we'll probably get some of that too. So you'll get hyper morals, hyper emotion, all of these. It might be even more compassionate.
Interesting.
So look, he's having success. People talk shit. They say he's not going to be able to do it. He did it with SpaceX, reusable rockets, drone rockets, landed on drone ships, reusable, re-landed. He's done it. They said he wasn't going to be able to do it with this Tesla rollout. They already, this week, it came that this Model 3, the new Model 3, which is $35,000 and has the capability to be fully autonomous already built in, they beat their delivery number. They said they were going to deliver some amount. They beat it.
Wow.
They're able to deliver more.
Wow.
He's having success after success. He wants to build a tunnel under Los Angeles to try his Hyperloop system. The Gigafactory's opening in Reno. They're going to double the amount of lithium ion. Got to watch Elon Musk, man.
Yeah.
He's one of the most important people in human history, and certainly he's more than Bill Gates. He's more than Rockefeller. He's maybe even more important than that, especially if he can get this Neuralink thing to happen. But we'll keep watching that, and of course, we love talking about the artificial intelligence and all that. Look at this. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
We've come to the end of the show, dude. It has. Let me say goodbye to the people, and we'll take off.
All right.
Thank you, Christian, for today. So, we have a challenge ahead of us of bringing these ideals forward and into the mainstream. And it looks like these ideas are beginning to bubble up just on their own. Now is the time. Now is the time to strike while the iron is hot. If you're watching this, you're already way ahead. And if these are the ideas that you believe in, you need to start paying attention to the people in the Freedom Caucus that we talked about. And you need to start talking with the people that you know, the people, especially those on the right, about the things that are happening on that side of the aisle. Because those people on the right who, as our guest Eric July talked about, those are the people that you can talk to with logic. And for those people who who are on the left, well, maybe you should be sharing BackWordz' new album, Veracity. Go and support them. Support Eric July. If you want to see that move forward, as he said, he's converted a lot of people on the left with the music. If you want to help convert even more, go on iTunes, buy it now in the first week. These guys are already going to chart. Let's help them do even better. Think about how much we can do just with that. How many people will be moved to this way of thinking, will be moved towards liberty just with that? And if you are an artist and you're in the closet, come out. It's nice. It's nice out here, and we'd love to have you, and we'd love to support you, and the people in this community would love to support your art. So, we're going to keep doing that. I'm going to be somebody who keeps supporting artists, and we've got even more artists coming up in this month, and I'm very excited about that. And we will keep supporting them. So I want to thank my guest, Eric July. Go get BackWordz' new album, Veracity, wherever you can, BackWordzMusic.com. I want to thank my co-host, Christian Reyes, for yet another great episode, and we will be back next week. In the meantime, you can check us out on iTunes and Stitcher for the audio podcast. You can also go to youtube.com/Vin Armani and youtube.com/activistpost to get the archive and the best of sections, including this week we will have up just Eric's interview by itself. So we'd love it if you share and comment. All of that helps. That's how we move this message forward. We're going to keep moving it forward, and we'll be moving it forward again next week, Monday at 10 a.m. And until then, stay free.